There's a specific type of person who, on a Saturday morning, doesn't sleep in. They wake up early, not for work, not for obligation, but to crouch down next to a machine in a garage or a parking lot, tools in hand, adjusting something that nobody else will ever notice. The seat height, the handlebar angle, the mirrors, the weight distribution. And here's what's interesting. They don't need to change any of it. The motorcycle works. It runs. It gets them where they need to go, but that's never been the point. We usually talk about motorcycle modification as a hobby, as an aesthetic preference, a mechanical interest. But what if I told you that the moment someone starts modifying their motorcycle, really modifying it obsessively, intentionally, it stops being about the machine? What if those adjustments are actually a conversation? Not between the person and the bike, but between the person and themselves. Because what psychology shows us over and over again is this. The way someone interacts with machines they care about reveals something fundamental about the way their mind is structured. And a motorcycle isn't just any machine. It's exposed. It's vulnerable. It demands total presence. And when someone decides to change it, to make it more theirs, they're not just building a bike. They're building a version of themselves they can actually ride. There's a concept in cognitive psychology called attentional architecture. The way your mind decides what deserves your focus, what gets filtered out, and how deeply you engage with the world around you. Most people live with a fractured version of this architecture. Notifications, noise. Half attention to everything, full attention to nothing. Riding a motorcycle doesn't give you the option of half attention. The machine demands that you show up completely or accept the consequences of not doing so. And this is where something shifts for these people. Because when you spend hours modifying your motorcycle, adjusting, testing, feeling the result, adjusting again, you are rewiring the way you engage with problems. You learn that small changes have significant consequences. You learn that feedback is real and immediate. You learn that the quality of your attention directly determines the quality of your experience. And that logic, that perception, doesn't stay in the garage. It starts to change how you process everything else. Relationships, decisions, risk, silence. Motorcycle people don't just ride differently, they think differently. Let's get specific. One of the most studied concepts in behavioral psychology is something called locus of control, the degree to which a person believes they are in control of the outcomes in their life. People with an external locus of control tend to believe that things happen to them, that life is largely circumstance, luck, or the decisions of others. People with an internal locus of control believe that their choices, their preparation, their presence, these things matter, that they are, at least partially, the authors of what happens next. Riding and modifying a motorcycle is, at its core, a continuous exercise in internal locus of control. Every adjustment you make is a hypothesis. If I change this, the result will be this. Every ride is a test of that hypothesis. Every outcome is feedback. Over time, this loop creates something remarkable in the brain, a deep, almost unshakable sense that your choices matter, that your attention matters, that you matter, in a causal, mechanical, real sense. There's also the research on risk perception and decision-making under uncertainty. People who regularly engage with calculated risk, not reckless but conscious risk, develop a fundamentally different relationship with fear. They don't eliminate fear. They learn to read it differently. Fear for them becomes information, not a stop signal, a data point. And finally, there's the neuroscience of mindfulness under pressure. Studies on motorcyclists show activation patterns in the brain similar to meditative states during focused riding. Not because it's relaxing, because it's total. The mind, when forced to be completely present, finds a kind of stillness in the center of motion. So, what kind of person does this actually create? These are people who are, in general, deeply independent. Not as a pose or a brand, but as a structural feature of how they think. They are comfortable making decisions without consensus. Not because they don't value other people, but because they've learned to trust the feedback loop inside themselves. They tend to have an unusually high tolerance for discomfort. not just physical, but cognitive. They are comfortable sitting with uncertainty. They can hold a problem in their mind for a long time without forcing a resolution. They know that some things only clarify when you keep moving. They are often confident in a quiet way, which is different from arrogance. Arrogance is loud because it's compensating for doubt. Quiet confidence is the product of thousands of small moments where someone showed up, paid attention, and handled it. And they tend to be intensely observational. They notice what others miss: the subtle shift in road texture, the way wind changes before it hits, the sound of something slightly off. This kind of perception, trained through writing, becomes a permanent feature of how they experience the world. But there's another dimension here that psychology often underestimates: the emotional one. Ask someone who modifies their motorcycle when they started riding, and watch what happens to their face. They'll tell you a story, but they won't just tell you a story. Something will move in them: a specific road, a specific summer, the feeling of the first time they understood what it meant to move through space with that kind of freedom. These memories are not nostalgic in the passive sense. They're foundational. The motorcycle is tied to moments of becoming, to transitions, to the version of themselves that decided, consciously or not, to live in a way that couldn't be fully explained to others. And when they modify the machine, they are, in a very real psychological sense, tending to that identity. They're keeping the story alive. There's also something profound about the relationship between a person and a machine they've built with their own hands. When you modify something, you understand it differently. You know where every joint is. You know what it cost. You know the decisions that were made. And that knowledge creates a kind of intimacy that changes the experience of writing entirely. You're not just using the machine. You're in dialogue with it. Here's what I think is really happening. We live in an era of abstraction. Most of the work we do has no physical form. Most of our decisions happen in systems too large and too complex for any one person to understand. Most of us go entire weeks without creating something we can hold in our hands and say, "I made this." And something in the human psyche needs that, needs tangibility, needs to interact with the world in a way that is direct and honest and consequential. Motorcycle modification is one of the last remaining spaces where that exchange is pure. You change something. The machine responds. You write it into the world. The world pushes back. No algorithm mediating the feedback. No committee validating the decision. Just you, the machine, and the road, which does not care about your intentions, only your preparation. And there's a philosophy buried in that reality. Life at its core operates the same way. The people who understand motorcycles deeply, who modify them, who tend to them, who take them apart and put them back together, often carry a very specific orientation toward existence. You are responsible for how you show up. The road will tell you if you got it right. That's not a motorcycle philosophy. That's a life philosophy. And if that idea resonates with you, if you find yourself drawn not just to machines, but to the kind of thinking that builds them, then this channel probably speaks your language. We explore the psychology behind the ways people choose to move through the world. If you want to understand how you actually think, not just what you think, subscribe. The next video goes even deeper. The person in the garage on Saturday morning isn't fixing a motorcycle. They're having a conversation with the most fundamental question a human being can ask. Do my choices matter? And every bolt they turn, every adjustment they test, every mile that confirms or corrects what they built. That's not a hobby. That's a practice. A way of staying honest with themselves in a world that makes it very easy not to be. The motorcycle is just the medium. The message, the real message, is this: the quality of your life is proportional to the quality of your attention. And the people who have learned that lesson in the most physical, most undeniable way possible, they tend to show up differently. In garages, in relationships, in the quiet moments when no one is watching. So here's what I want to leave you with. And I want you to really sit with it. Is there something in your life, a machine, a craft, a practice, that forces you to be completely present? And if there isn't, what is that costing you? Leave your answer in the comments. I read every single one.